Dan Noma, welcome to the Next Level podcast. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, my pleasure. We are getting the Facebook Live going part of this because, when you and I started talking about recording this podcast, we decided, hey, let's do this one live inside the Next Level Agents Facebook group. There's some good information here. Yeah. But of course, let's also record a podcast. So I'm excited for this because you and I have been talking so much recently about some of the stuff you've got going on. And while I definitely want to talk about that, I also want to talk about the stuff you've been doing in your career over the last, since you opened VentureREI, 2010?
Yeah,
2012.
We're about 10 years into VentureREI now. So we just had our 10-year anniversary.
Man, that's pretty crazy. So tell us what VentureREI is first. So tell me a little bit about where did VentureREI come from? And tell me why did you decide to open up your own real estate brokerage?
Yeah, why did I do that? Fundamentally my clients, even back beginning of time were always investors. I've actually, pride myself on saying I've never sold a home to someone that lives in it. And that actually is really true. They actually have never lived in it. No one's ever sat in the back seat of my car. So I've always operated real estate a little bit differently. So when the idea that, REO, short sale, that kind of stuff started happening and, I could sell real estate without having to drive people around and open doors, I thought that was great. So I quickly got tied into working with a lot of institutional people. They understood that my background really was in commercial real estate. So my degree is in commercial real estate and finance. And so they knew that I understood commercial real estate fundamentals, and they were starting to get this idea that they could take some of those fundamentals and shift them over into residential. And so one of my clients, he was the originator of single family homes for rent. He's considered kind of the godfather of single family for rent. So kind of fast forwarding a little bit, but jumping into 2011, 2012, we really got involved in the institutional acquisition of single family homes for rent. And I would say, today that's probably the core of our business. We've really figured out how to work with these institutions to help them really aggregate a bunch of houses at scale. We help them build their property management divisions. We help them, on the acquisition side. And while it sounds easy, right? Someone comes to you and they say they want to buy 1,000 homes in a market in a year. It actually is pretty hard. And, we can't buy them on MLS. I mean, we buy some on MLS, but a lot of these we have to feed up funnel and we got to get close to the seller. And so, when fast forwarding a little bit further, getting into iBUYER time, 5-6 years ago, Opendoor comes into our market. I saw this as a huge opportunity, right? I said, man, all these guys they're connecting to the sellers directly. How can I align with them? And so, we've transacted, a ton with Opendoor, OfferPad, Zillow. I mean, all these guys in this disruption space. And so it's been a really cool journey, just a different way of playing in the real estate world for sure.
Yeah. So that's, what's interesting is anybody who's just now tuning in, if they just caught the part where you said, well, that's interesting when you brought up Opendoor and, Opendoor launching 5-6 years ago, yep. As opposed to what most agents say, which is what the heck is that? Or, yep. Man, they're trying to get rid of us. You went, hold on a second. This is interesting. Where's my opportunity in this? And I think that's one of the things, number one, that I really appreciate about you. But then you went out and did something about it too, so your business could grow because you said, what can I learn from these guys? Where's the chance for me to jump in? So that should give anybody who just tuned in a little bit of a look into the way you think and the way you approach the real estate business, because clearly it's different than most other people, and it's one of the things I really, really admire about you. Why do you think? Let me ask you this question, Dan, and I don't want to get too off track from your story. Nope. But why do you think most people don't respond in a similar way?
So, I actually spend a lot of time on, personal and business development. So I've done a lot of coaching around this. And, personally, I understand that, everything's in your mindset, right? And so if we're presented with an idea and our response comes from fear, we're always going to have this kind of negative, connotation around it. So the way I respond with it is just being grateful. And so like, oh my God, this is, so like, think about, we'll take Open Door, for example. They walk into our market. A lot of our agents, their response was fear. Oh my God, these guys are going to take over our world. Our response was, this is like, we're super grateful that these guys are here. This is happening. This could be the greatest change in our real estate history ever. I appreciate that we get to be part of this ride. What's our opportunity in it? So I don't know. I mean, that we just focus a lot on just, things that we can't change. And let's find the opportunity in the stuff that we can, and that's how we built the brand here. And this is what we do.
Awesome. So if I'm not mistaken, you guys, VentureREI, so obviously you've got, there's the traditional aspect to it, but most of your business obviously is with these institutional buyers and iBuyers, et cetera.
Yep.
You guys got what, 6 locations for your brokerage now total?
Yep. So we have 6 locations. We have about 150 agents in Maricopa County now. The thing that I kind of hang my hat on with our brokerage is all these people came here organically. We've never done any recruiting and none of that. And, when I built this company, I thought it was going to be me and Gabe and maybe a couple other people. And it's certainly evolved into something different on a brokerage end. But, we're definitely not the, not a training type place. It's an environment that's, heavily investor focused. And, while we have some agents that play on both sides a little bit, the core of our business is been on the off market and the institutional world. Yeah,
that's no doubt. I mean, I know some of the agents that have work with you guys, and it is kind of fun because I want to say we have a mutual friend, Dustin, introduced us years ago, probably 2013, 2014, sometime quite a while ago. And we had, I remember just kind of sitting there meeting with you with your old office in Chandler and talking through some different ideas. And I knew right away, like you definitely approach things differently. I liked it. And also at the same time, like here I am, I'm a traditional agent. I'm not afraid to admit it. And quite frankly, you talked about like, hey, it sounds great to client comes to you, says I want to buy 1,000 houses. Like that, honestly, that would scare the crap out of me personally. Because I don't know how to approach that. And so what I was hoping maybe we could do today, Dan, is how do you even obviously I'm not asking you for trade secrets, but could you just break down like some of the thought processes? What do you do when somebody comes to you like that and they say, hey, Dan, we need you to help us buy 500, 1,000, 2,000 homes over the next couple of years in this one market? What do you even begin to look at? Because I think most of us as agents, and I know you consider yourself kind of like nerd first, real estate agent second, but most of us are agents, right? And so it's hard for us to even think from that side. I'll call it like the Wall Street side of it or the big investor side of it first. Where do I even begin?
Yeah. So, kind of first, our first step really is we really dive in deep with our clients on their buy box criteria. We want to understand like at least what the market can bear. So we do have a lot of clients that will come in and they say they want to buy X amount of properties. And within a few minutes, we can tell them how many, pretty close to what we think we can actually pull out of the market at any given time. So we built a software, it's called Moneyball. And in that software, we can underwrite we underwrite the entire market every 90 seconds. So what we're doing in there is a couple things, right? We're underwriting the MLS, so properties for sale, and we're underwriting everything that's actually in the market. So we've had to learn with the stuff so let's say, for example, my client's buy box is built. I understand the metrics of what they're going to buy. Like they want a 6% yield, right? So if they want that kind of yield play, then I find our sellers who are most likely to sell. So they start kind of tracking boxes, right? They've owned their home for 5 or more years. They've got X amount of equity in the property. One of their neighbors just sold to one of our competitors, things like that. So we start looking for like trends and try to figure out when people are most likely to sell. So originally it was just us. Like I was going out and we were sending the mail and we were going direct to consumer and we were trying to have these conversations with consumers. And while that worked and it was really effective, what we found now that's we've become even more effective is that we have an army of agents in the market that we should service too. And so we actually start giving those leads to real estate agents saying, hey, look, I've got a client that wants to buy this house. If you get a hold of this seller, let them know that we're interested. And when they are, I'll give you the offer on the property. So what it's doing is like giving the agent a reason to have a conversation, right? So that now they have a reason to pick up the phone and call these people. And then for us, it's a little self-serving because we get the first look at buying the property. So that's kind of the evolution of what we've got to. I mean, we probably have 15 different lead funnels that happen. We work a lot with like wholesalers and obviously a lot of the iBuyers and, anybody that has their hands on properties. My clients tend, because they're renting them fundamentally, they tend to pay more and they close in cash. And that's always been, cash has been king. Like that hasn't changed, right? I think agents are fearful to have that as the iBuyer walks into the world, but that hasn't changed. That's been happening in real estate forever. So we're trying to leverage, what our skill set is and, give the leads and things to agents that, are stronger in people's living rooms, right? I would say that we're probably not the strongest at someone's living room. And guys like you would be awesome, right? So, if you and I were sitting down having a listing presentation together, you'd probably get it.
Well, you probably represent the buyer, so that's
Yeah.
it's a good match, right?
Yeah.
So I like that. Can I gotta ask, where'd the name Moneyball come from? Because that's like my favorite book ever.
I know.
So is that where that's from?
Yeah, it came from the book. So it was just, what do we call this thing? We said, all right, we're calling it Moneyball. That's the name. So
that's awesome.
The background of our system. Yep.
So I've actually been saving that question for you to hit you live. I wanted to ask you that for the last couple of weeks. So, so cool. So am I wrong, Dan? Like I realize like VentureREI is a brokerage, but I think what I really just heard you say is you're like a software and tech company today. That's truthfully what it sounds like. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say that we've certainly evolved. Like as our clients' buy boxes have become more robust, and the demand for investment property, whether it be properties that are being flipped or properties that are going to be rented, that demand is strong. Like there's more capital in the space than I've ever seen it. And with that kind of pent up demand, like we had to focus on how do we get enough boots on the ground, right? That can actually serve us back, where they can actually give us these deals back. So that's where we spent a ton of time, was just in really mining data and understanding like, what are these properties they can buy? What can we do with these leads that we give to real estate agents? What tools do they need when they're going out to present them? What's the process that they could use to maybe close better? And so we've done a lot of testing to kind of get where we are today and hopefully kind of keep growing.
That's man, that's awesome. Why is there so much money available in this space right now?
Yeah. So, single family for rent, and I'll speak to that first, is interesting, especially, in what we call kind of the consumer, your standard consumer product, right? The kind of that basic, in Phoenix, it's that under 300 kind of level price point. Over time, what we've learned is that consumers are probably reaching to buy those homes, right? Their income forces them to basically have enough money to be able to buy the house and maybe have a couple months of reserves, but they don't have a ton of equity, or they don't have a ton of money in the bank that they're just sitting on. So, and let's say the AC unit goes out, or they need a roof repair, or something big, capital improvement happens to the property. It could be a generational issue, right? Like a $10,000 or $20,000 swing in an annual kind of basis for them could be a generational problem. And so the institutional investors looked at this and they said, okay, well, this is an interesting play. Like we know people need a place to live. We know fundamentally maybe that they maybe shouldn't buy a house, like even though they're lending to them over here on the mortgage side. They said, well, maybe they shouldn't buy a house. And if they're not going to buy them, we want to make sure we own those assets so that A, these people have a place to live, and B, that we can get some rent out of them. The cost of capital has come way down too. That's a big trigger for us is cost of capital. So when I first got into the space, a lot of these institutions were leveraging their own capital stack at 5-6%. Today that number is around 2.5%. So, how many houses would you buy if the interest rate was 2.5% and you could rent it out at full market value? Probably a lot, and that's a big piece of the puzzle. And then now we've got a lot of investors that have been playing like in the multifamily space and the commercial space and things like that. that have some uncertainty, like especially in the retail world where they don't want to invest in malls and things anymore because they're a little uncertain on how that's going to play out with the growth of Amazon and everybody shopping online. They're going, hey, maybe we should diversify a little bit. So we're starting to see capital stacks filter from, guys that used to say, for example, invest in malls and in retail strip centers are now investing in single family for rent. And it's its own asset class now. I mean, we're starting to see big trades of single family rental pools trade, in the thousands, 2,000 assets will start trading. And, since we've started this, now they're up to, I think there's 200,000 single family rentals owned in the United States by either publicly traded REITs or smaller groups that will trade into a REIT.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you and I are both, we're in the Metro Phoenix area, right? So, but this doesn't just happen here, right? This is happening in other markets.
Yeah, totally. So, fundamentally, we see them in what we call kind of the smile states. So any areas that we saw big distress, during REO and short sale, climates that it's warm, it's easy to manage the properties. We're not seeing huge breakage in pipes and winterizing vacant assets and things like that. There are groups now that are starting to get into markets like that, right? We're starting to see a lot of movement in Chicago. We're seeing a lot of movement in New York, where these guys can get big rents, and they're really playing a game of a return on their dollar. And if that means they need to own a property in Massachusetts, you might start to see them buy assets there too.
Wow. Okay. So this isn't just like it's going to happen a few different places. This is happening sort of all over the country at this point.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a big segment of the business. In kind of for real estate agents, I feel like it's a bit underserved, right? Like they come to us and we source it to multiple investors at a time. But I mean, as an agent, it would be a market that you could totally consider. I mean, you could build a business just on selling properties to some of these groups and be totally satisfied with that.
Well, clearly
Yeah.
you can do that, right? You're proof of it. You sold a couple homes. You probably sold a couple homes since we started recording 25 minutes ago. So
maybe we hope. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's fascinating. Now I know the answer to this because I've been lucky enough to know you for years, and you've allowed me to to truthfully learn from you. But can you just do me a favor because we've got listeners that aren't just in the smile states, if you will, that truthfully aren't even really sure what an iBuyer is, or maybe they know now, but what's the difference between like an iBuyer and say one of the institutions that you represent, or one of these, the REITs or these smaller groups that you represent not from time to time, but basically every day?
Yeah. So we really put them in two boxes. And so we identified the iBuyer as basically any buyer in that market that is buying a property and they are going to return that property to that market. So we know that they're going to renovate it and they're going to return it to the market as a resale property. So we identified all of them as iBuyers. And I know there's big ones and there's small guys, there's all kinds of them. On the institutional side, those properties do not come back to market. Those properties are bought, they are renovated, and then they go into a long-term rental play. Many of them get traded at Wall Street, just like stocks and bonds, right? So they package them up and they trade them like they trade any other stock. And so many of these REITs now, they're publicly traded companies, right? So there's, say, 20,000 homes in a REIT, and that company is now traded in a public market. So it's really hard for them to unwind them and sell them. So many of them don't even factor appreciation in their model. It is strictly just a rent model. They're going to rent these things until the cows come home. There's no plan ever to sell any of them.
Wow. So theoretically, that business forever is just going to collect rents, and it's not ever going to go. So let's say we have a big run up, right? So here in the Phoenix market anyways, we say if you would have bought a house here in 2012, what it's worth today is significantly more. They're not going to, like your guys that bought in 2012, they're not going to go, hey, listen, we gained 75% value. We're going to go start selling these, this 75 homes over here, this 100, because their whole business model is about collecting rent.
It is, yeah. So they collect rent, but you also have to remember that they are using debt as a vehicle. So when they see that kind of appreciation, that's monopoly money. So now they can refinance the debt, pull some equity out, and buy 10 more houses with it, right? And so they're rinsing and repeating. So the guys that got into the game early, groups like Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, some of these other guys, they bought at the absolute bottom, and they're buying assets now on the house's money on appreciation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's mind blowing. Okay, so they are buying homes forever theoretically, and then an iBuyer is going to buy it and literally put it right back on the market. Not the next day, but as soon as possible, right?
Yep. That property gets recycled. So recycled, put back on the market, and the iBuyer really, like if you look at kind of our bigger iBuyers, Open Door, OfferPad, Zillow. The function is they're playing on convenience. They're giving consumers an option that they've never had before. So, in one sense, we talk about the institution who, they're servicing a need of the consumer, that there was a segment of consumer that didn't want to live in an apartment, but they also couldn't afford to buy a home. So they serviced that for them. They answered that need. That's all the iBuyer's done, is they created an option for consumers to say, look, if you want to sell your home and you want to sell it now and have it be certain, we'll take on the liability of, it could potentially stay on the market for 90 days, right? Or, we'll take the liability of making sure the house stays clean for every showing. We'll take the liability of the house potentially getting broken into during showings and things like that. So they've taken all of that ugliness that we talk about in selling a property and servicing that need. And, the question is to what degree are consumers willing to give up of equity to pay for that convenience? And, that answer is still to be seen. I mean, we see that number vary every day across the market. So there's no methodology to that yet, I would say, but it certainly is servicing a need or a demand that the consumer has.
Yeah. I had a guest on the podcast last year. His name's, earlier this year, his name's Chris Heller, good friend of mine. And he mentioned that it's really consumer behavior that drives technology, not the other way around.
Totally.
And I think that's actually what we're now experiencing in real estate,
right.
is the consumer behavior of wanting these other options. Maybe it's the renter that really shouldn't buy yet, or maybe it's the seller that doesn't want to go through this kind of arduous process that just isn't fun.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I have that conversation with agents all the time when they go, man, I can't believe you guys are aligning yourselves with the iBuyer. And I just look at them and I think about, my response to them is, look, there's a huge opportunity in this. If you actually sat down and thought about it, these guys are providing something an option for your clients that you never were able to provide before, right? So like if we're in the service-based business, that's a service. We should be offering that to our clients. And for some people it works, and for the majority so far, it still doesn't. But they're just servicing that need, that consumer demand. And certainly what they've proven so far is that there is a consumer demand for this. And we as agents, we don't get to control that. And no one's, I've heard the argument, well, NAR is supposed to be looking out for us and, protect our industry and all this other stuff. And it's for what? I mean, this is a consumer focused group. These guys are not here to protect agents. That's not the play here. The tech is built around serving the need of the consumer, and we as agents just need to find where we play in that need, right? And I think that's what it is at its core for me.
I mean, isn't that what entrepreneurship and business is all about? Is like you actually go out and take care of it. You find a need and you fill it.
Yeah.
The thing, and I run a traditional agent team,
Yep.
And we're evolving, right? Partially in the help because of your help. But I can relate to the agent that is kind of scared or even upset on
right.
one hand, but on the other hand, the thing that's always gotten me, Dan, is that when I hear people talking about the changes coming in the technology, what I hear is phrases about protecting commissions, not about serving the consumer. And I think we have to change the conversation to the consumer, not about the commission or about the agent protecting the agent. I feel as an agent, as a business person, it is my job to find my opportunity, create value. Call me woo-woo or whatever, but I believe I get paid in direct proportion to the value I provide to a scenario. or
Definitely.
to a transaction or to a business, whatever that might be.
Right. And that, you know, you hear that argument constantly. Well, these guys won't be around very long because they're not making any money. And the reality is they will eventually make money. That's not what the need that they're servicing right now. The need, they're actually, they've got more consumer eyes than any one of us does singly, right? Than in the country. So, you know, they kind of are answering, they're speaking to the consumer. And if you've heard like Eric Wu talk or some of these leaders at some of these other companies, they never talk about themselves. They never talk about profitability. They never talk about the profitability of their teams. It's always about like what's in the best interest of the consumer. And I think we as agents, if we shift our thinking, like, and we're facing the consumer, and if we're consumer first, eventually we'll win, right? It's kind of that theory that, you know, old adage that, you know, if you do the right thing, eventually good things will happen to you. I believe that to be true in all of this. We never see like bad leaders or bad companies really take off and go. It's the guys that, you know, service the consumer first, then they really start to make it. I think Bezos is the proof of that for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I was going to say,
Yeah.
people seem to be okay with Amazon losing money for 20 years. So
Right. Yeah.
apparently you can lose money for a long time and
Yep.
actually still have a business that survives.
That's it.
I
That's
think
it.
it's that maybe people aren't used to that happening in real estate. And so it's
Yeah.
new and maybe it's kind of scary to them.
Right.
You know, I have a friend, and he's kind of a friend and a mentor. He was a boss of mine, and first he was a coworker, then became my boss, and was always a mentor, and still is to this day. Before I got into real estate, and he worked at GoDaddy. He was very close to Bob, the founder, like
Mm-hmm.
very close, like close. And you know, he always told me that one of the rules that Bob had come up with was, if it's good for the consumer and it's good for the company, just do it. So when there's a request that comes up, you know, from somebody on the team, whether it's an entry level employee or somebody who's a senior level executive, or
Yep.
if it's a request from the customer, the criteria for somebody making the decision was, is it good for the consumer and is it good for the company? And when the answer is yes, just do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, you know, if you've heard me say this before, I apologize for repeating it, but you know, agents over time, like we were given this price fix. You know, this idea that we had to earn 6%, like in the last 20 years, for me, that number really hasn't changed. That's just been an assumption. And when you get your real estate license, all of a sudden you're worth 6%, but in no other industry does the agent or someone in that transaction make that kind of money. And while it's awesome, and I've certainly enjoyed the ride, I have to say that I kind of don't blame the consumer. Like with the technology and the tools that we have, like we can close transactions faster. We can get to consumers faster. We should be doing more volume and save the consumer some money. Like we don't get to play both. I don't know why some agents believe we get to do both, but I don't think we do.
I think there's a little bit of the human element of, I'm scared because it's different, but then there's also some entitlement. And, you
Sure.
know, let's face it, most of us, not all, in this industry are, you know, kind of high drivers, high Ds, if you will, if you're familiar with the disc, and we want to kind of make things our own way. And we tend to run things over first rather than finessing.
Right.
So, which is another reason why I love Moneyball, because I'm the guy that does what naturally I want to run things over and run through the wall. And Moneyball is all about, hold on a second, let's look at this different, you know.
Yeah.
Even before I ever got in business myself, reading that book was the first time I actually realized this is a business book. This has nothing to do with baseball.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
and I've looked at the world differently ever since, and I try to use that as a way to constantly get better. So, all right. So starting to wrap up this conversation, one of the things I want to talk about, because you've been you've always been a good friend, but you came to me and you told me about something that you're working on with Kenny Klaus, and that I think is awesome. I got very fortunate enough to kind of be able to take a look at this ahead of time. And so, and this came out of the fact of basically all the questions you and I just talked about, because there's the questions we just went over and probably thousands more that agents have around understanding the iBuyer, understanding the institutional buyer as well, the differences, and how do we actually use this to service our clients. So I noticed the shirt that you're wearing there.
Yeah.
today. Could you tell
Yeah.
me, about that? By the way, I saw Eugene from Open Door. I noticed he was wearing the shirt today in a Facebook
Awesome.
post that
Yeah.
where Kenny posted the picture. So, which I think is great. So shout out to Eugene.
Yeah.
But so tell me a little bit about what you've got cooking, man, because I think this iReal Estate Pro thing is pretty awesome. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we're super excited. So Kenny, Klaus, and I got together and, coming from two different camps and ideas on this, me more being investment and institutional side, and Kenny obviously being on the retail side. We both were selling a lot of properties to these iBuyers. And so we came together and we decided that, we needed to teach other agents how to do this, that we were kind of tired of hearing that, there was all this fear. And then we felt like it was a missed opportunity. And if we don't capture it as an industry, that we will get rolled over. And so, a lot of this is around protecting our industry as an industry, right? Like there's an opportunity here for us to get together. And I think Kenny says it really well that, when an iBuyer is making an offer on a property, like that's a uniform deal. They've all made it. And we as agents, we all have different ideals, right? So we're all independent contractors and we all have these different things going on. So, the goal with iReal Estate Pro is to give agents the education, the core of the education that they're going to need to work with investors and iBuyers in any market. It took us a long time to figure out how to do this, right? And there is a methodology. It's just like working in, when we started in short sale, none of us knew how to negotiate a short sale. Same process here. I mean, there is a science to getting an offer from these guys. And when you get that offer, the difference in just, an offer and an educated offer and understanding like each one of the iBuyers and potentially what options they mean, because, to be honest, if we're looking at $200,000 offers from two different buyers, although they may net the same dollar amount, they have different characteristics, right? There's different ancillary benefits in working with one of these groups over another. The other thing that we talk about a lot in the course is how agents can leverage this in their business and actually implement some of these tools to make these iBuyers their client, right? So I've had the luxury of working with some of the biggest institutions in the world in their aggregation. I've never had a client with the amount of capital that some of these iBuyers have. So they have a massive amount of capital and we all have access to them. So it's not like the institutional world necessarily where, there might be one or two agents in the market that have access. We all do. They are ready. They're telling us all that they want to buy houses. And so the focus really is, giving agents the tools that they need to market to the consumers in a way that we know that they're going to respond, or at least that has worked for us. And then the tools that they need to transact with that iBuyer. Then once they get these offers back, how do they present the offers in a way that serves the consumer, right? And not necessarily points to just their offer, right? Where Kenny and I met a lot was that, agents were getting offers from iBuyers and they were leveraging that offer to go traditional. And they would say to the consumer, oh, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And, we definitely don't coach to that. That's not our methodology here. We coach agents that, whatever's in the best interest of the consumer, and it's your job to present all of those options to them. And so that's the core of the training. And so it's a one-time course. So you take a course online, you get a certification, which you have now. And then Kenny and I do an ongoing training. And so, this thing is changing and evolving every day. We hear news and we're talking to these guys constantly. And so we're constantly getting updated on new iBuy groups. There's there'll be 5 that start by the end of the month. And then, what message do they want agents to know? So these guys are definitely not people to fear. I would consider a lot of them friends and not foes. And, if we as agents embrace this as an option, we've proven in all of our numbers that even when we present all the potential options to the consumer, they still need us on the traditional side 60% of the time, right? Like no matter what agent I've given this tool to, that number seems to kind of hold true. And so I think that's the world we're living in right now, where about 60% of the people still want to list the property and get the most for the money. But it's our job as agents to be as transparent, as honest as possible. And, to be honest, like as we started this in our business, we really value time here. And so we look hard at time, and we've got it down to now. If a client comes to us and they want to sell a property, we're selling to one of these iBuyer groups or one of our investors, and the transaction, the total time that we spend on the deal is about 15 minutes. So we've cut our time of transaction down a ton, a lot of headaches out, sleep better at night. All those things are important to me. And so we hopefully take those tools and give those to agents that they can take and use in their business across the country.
Yeah, man, I got to tell you, so number one, I'm really excited about some of the stuff I get with this. And, you know, as you mentioned, me being able to get first look at this and to actually get certified by you guys has been super awesome, because it's something that, you know, when you and I started connecting and talking about this, it was funny because Fred and I had been talking for a couple of months of like, how do we do this with our traditional real estate team? Because to me, the message from a marketing standpoint isn't really about how much is your house worth. It's if you want an offer, here's, would you like an offer, right? That's actually the message. Would you like an offer? Right. And it's not about, would you like to know how much your house is worth? And then, but how do we take that in our real estate business and actually put that into play? And so when we started talking about this and you were willing to let me take a peek at the education that you guys are rolling out, I went, okay, finally our problems are solved. Everything from kind of the net sheet, and hopefully, I don't know if you've got time, if you could kind of show us what some of these tools are like, but like being able to see the website that you guys have created for your members, the marketing materials. And I think what's really important about this is those scripts that you're willing to share, so I can actually have the educated conversation with a buyer, or excuse me, with a potential seller about the buyer of their home or the potential buyer of the home.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, the front end, we could talk for hours about marketing and kind of the messaging to the consumer. A lot of that continues to grow, and we continue to test. But I think kind of the core of this is really what you guys are looking at here, and this is really what we see now as the new CMA, right? It used to be that the consumer would get a CMA from us, and we thought that was pretty cool when Armless came out with the one that we could just push button and print. Well, we got to do a little bit more work now. But you know, with an iReal Estate Pro certification, this is the kind of tool that you're going to end up with. And so what we found is that, you know, as we show all these offers, so this is an example of a net sheet in Phoenix, as we show all of these potential offers to a consumer, right? So we actually get into what we're making as an agent, so what the actual cost of sale is to that consumer, what their closing cost is. We put in their mortgage payoff information, HOA transfer fees. We try to get as close to an actual net as possible, so they can actually start to see the difference that all these potential buyers would net them. You know, when we're presenting it this way, we've really removed consumer doubt. Consumer that maybe this agent is the right fit for me, or maybe there's another option for me out there. You know, I heard about this other company that I don't see it, you know, they're not presenting to me. And so I've seen a lot of agents, especially presenting like the 2 net sheet option, and, you know, they're presenting traditional, and then they're getting an iBuyer offer, and they're saying, well, that doesn't, you know, you want to go traditional. That's the goal here. We present it a little bit differently, and we want to make sure that, you know, the consumer drives the ship. Each one of these has a different positive, negative aspect of it. And that, you know, when you're sitting down with your consumer with data like that, they really are driving it. You as an agent, your job just got a heck of a lot easier. You just sit down there and you go over, these are all their options. It's so different than when you list a property on MLS and you get 10 offers on the property. You're presenting all those offers, pros and cons of those. We're just doing that in advance and showing them all of our options. And really what it boils down to is time. And if the consumer is willing to trade time for convenience, then you have yourself a traditional seller. That's kind of it at the bottom. And this helps them at least make that decision and know that you're not withholding anything, and it's not self-serving at all.
Yeah, that's, man, I got to be honest, like that is huge. The ability to take away that doubt of, yeah, but okay, so I heard Zillow's buying homes here too, versus if you just show them an open door or an OfferPad offer. Right. And now to go, well, we actually have some other companies that can buy it. And if I'm going on an appointment here, I feel like I'm armed with basically everything I ever need to be able to do this. And I think this is really smart of you guys. One of the things I love, and I didn't do a great job of it, so I apologies to Kenny, but for those of you who don't know Kenny Klaus, I think Dan and I just assume everybody does because we're both in Phoenix and everybody knows Kenny in Phoenix. but Kenny's one of the top agents in the entire country. And he is a very traditional, he does something that he calls the realtor route. I mean, this guy is the farming machine. He is as a traditional agent as you get. And yet here he is, he's your partner on iReal Estate Pro to come in and go, hold on a second, how can I use this in my business as this traditional real estate who's a farmer, if you will, in the sense, in the real estate sense. And the fact that you guys have got your institutional mind and your ability to work with these big companies, and then Kenny's mind, who's not just, he sells a lot of real estate, but he also does it in a very traditional sense. To be able to bring those two worlds together, to me, is really super magical from a standpoint of education as another agent who's going through this. And so I just wanted to, I felt like I did a terrible job of setting Kenny up there, but I wanted to make sure the listeners understand who is actually putting this together. This isn't some dude on Wall Street who's up in an ivory tower. This is you and Kenny, ground floor here in Phoenix, who run businesses, not just in Phoenix. Obviously, I know you've got your hands in transactions all over the country. And so this is really a wide ranging thing that can help pretty much every real estate agent on the planet.
Yeah, and you know, we're learning as agents in other markets are taking these things, even non-iBuyer markets or non-major iBuyer markets, the tools still work. Like what iBuyer markets have proven is that consumers want stuff on demand. They want that. They want to be able to order on Amazon and have the popsicles at the door before they melt. That's something that that we as agents just have to understand. Like, we didn't control that shift. That shift just happened. That's what they want now. And so we just have to be a part of that conversation. And so by us being a facilitator of the information, they still need us to guide them through this transaction. There's no question that a consumer is better served using a licensed real estate agent. But if that agent is now educated in how to work with these other iBuyers or investors in that market, they really are opening up the world for that consumer. And they're at nothing else. They're probably just eliminating some doubt that, you know, now they really know what their property's worth, right? If I say to them, hey, in Phoenix, that, you know, these are the 6 institutional buyers that are active in Phoenix. This is their offer on your property. This is technically what Wall Street says your property is worth to them. You know, these iBuyers are interested in your property and this is what they would pay. A lot of times that's okay. That's a palatable number for them. But in those instances where they're still tied to the equity and they're willing to trade a little time, more times than not, the traditional option is probably going to yield them the most money. But that's not always the circumstance. And we just as agents have never been able to give consumers that option before. So we're just starting to learn about how the consumer confidence is building around convenience. And this is really the way that they're saying that they want to transact. And there's a way for us to play in this for sure. I mean, we know that the iBuyers that transact with us this way, like we get more quality offers out of them. So I'm not going to say higher offers, but we know that when agents use our process and they use our tools, that they get a more educated offer out of the iBuyer. And so there's less retrading, there's less of this bad taste down their mouth when they get the inspection report back. But it saves us as agents a ton of time, because now we can provide our consumers with all their potential options up front. We're super transparent on how we're doing it. And, you know, and quite frankly, you could list the property traditionally, and it could mean that one of these iBuyers or institutional offers makes sense 30 days from today. Like, you know, things change. And by not having those options before, like that's the beauty in this for me. That's where I see this being like a really, really big gift for agents.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, so my mind is going a few places as this traditional agent. I'm a little bit untraditional or non-traditional, I guess it would be the right word, in the sense that we sell real estate in a few different markets around the country, not just here in Phoenix, Arizona. And what I'm thinking is, okay, this gives me the chance to really compete here in Phoenix, which is like iBuyer ground zero, right? It really gives me the chance to go and build my business, compete in a way that I didn't have before. But the other thing that I'm thinking, quite frankly, is in some of these markets I'm in where it's not an iBuyer market yet, or maybe it never will be. This actually, when I look at some of the stuff I get from your training, from the scripts and the website where I can actually go capture leads from people who do want cash offers, and the media that you've used, the kind of the ad campaigns that you've used as well through
Yep.
this training, I could actually go out here and build my own investing business. I could also go out and now if especially in our business where we've been in business for years, we've got a database of also smaller clients, mom and pops, where some of these institutions may not be. I
Yep.
can now go service them at a whole different level that I never could before.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we actually think it's awesome in markets that we don't see a lot of the bigger iBuyer traffic right now, because you kind of could serve both. You're going to concert, you're serving your new clients that want to sell, but also you're whetting the appetite of all the investors to see properties that they've never been able to see before. So it's an interesting dynamic of being able to kind of serve all the parties there.
Awesome. So if I'm an agent right now, I'm listening to this or I'm watching it on Facebook Live or YouTube, I can go to, is that iRealEstatePro.com and check this out. Is there anywhere else somebody should go to learn more about this?
No, so right now, just go to iRealEstatePro.com. We are actually going to, besides you, Kevin, we are going to start certifying agents as of August 8th. So August 8th is our official launch date, where agents can take the course online. So it's not like they have to sit in a classroom and listen to us talk for 3.5 hours. They do have to listen to us, but they get to do it online. But all the tools, the website, all of our training, all that stuff is built into the website or into the training course for them. So it's a one-stop shop. The community is where this thing is really, really going to grow, and we think we're going to learn a ton from. So Kenny and I both are very much into how even some of these Facebook groups have evolved and the things that we learn and happening in different markets. So, as agents start to come into our community, we really hope that evolves into where there's a ton of value for agents, where, an agent in Portland can show an agent in Austin what he's doing, or a marketing piece that he's used that's been really effective. And, it hopefully will give agents a place to kind of band together, because these companies are banded together. And so we as agents need to get our arms around this and get in consumers' living rooms with good information, serve our consumers a little bit better, and we can play too.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, Dan, thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to number one, let me just kind of interview you and learn a little bit more about the way you think, but also being able to, I love it. I got a 6-day head start. Listen, I like bonuses and exclusive stuff. I'm not afraid to admit it. So to be the first iREP certified agent is pretty awesome honor for me. So thank you for that. But truthfully, I'm super glad about being able to bring this to my organization, because the consumers that we are servicing, we are constantly thinking about how do we bring them a higher level. And I genuinely believe this is the way we're going to do it. It's not everything, but it is absolutely the way we bring them more options and get us closer to making sure we are meeting the demands of the consumer. To me, this is the biggest missing piece in that opportunity. And so I just want to say thank you to both you and Kenny, because I know that you guys have worked hard on making this thing come to life. So thanks a ton, man.
No, thank you. And congrats for being the first iReal Estate Pro certified agent in the country. That's
absolutely. Cool. I'm going to go crack my bottle of champagne and we're going to take a picture of it and post it. And I'm pretty stoked about that. So, all right. So anybody listening, we appreciate your time as always, but check out iRealEstatePro.com. You can look up Dan Noma. You probably won't see too much of him because he's the guy who's basically always working and in the lab, if you will. But Dan's a great guy. If someone wants to connect with you, Dan, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably through Facebook could be the easiest way to find me there. Just Dan Noma Jr. You can find me there, or through our website at VentureREI, and now through iReal Estate Pro.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, thanks for listening today. We appreciate your time. And Dan, thanks a bunch. I know that this launch is going to go awesome for you guys next week, and super excited to be part of this with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Next Level Agents. Take it easy, and we'll talk to you soon.